Alright everybody, we are here today to talk about the Maverick 88 from Mossberg. So, standard you have two basic models. You have the 18.5 inch barrel and you have the 20 inch barrel. Both go for about the same price. It's of course going to vary wherever you go, from about $230 to $250 right now. Somewhere there. You can sometimes find them on sale for $200. Other places where markup is worse, you might wind up paying closer to $300. You also do have the longer barreled varieties with something like this, which would then be fitted to the same model that has the 18.5 inch barrel, because that is what will lock in with this magazine tube. This barrel will not work with the 20 inch. Basically, the 20 inch, if this is what you have, you're only going to have this barrel, because as far as I can tell, this is currently the only one that they make that will fit on this. Hunting in most places is usually a bit more regulated, so they don't want you out there with 7 rounds. 18.5 inch model has a 5+1 capacity. The 20 inch has a 7+1 capacity. Depending on where you are, if you are using these for hunting, they may also have you stick something in here to further limit it. A longer follower or a stick or what have you. I don't hunt, so I'm not all that up to date on it, but they will sometimes do that to limit you to 2 in the magazine. So the other really big difference you will see on these, this one obviously has the top folding stock with a pistol grip. This has the traditional rifle style stock. A lot of people will tell you to get the shotgun with the pistol grip on it. I disagree with that. Shotguns do have considerable recoil, and especially if it's your only defense weapon and you're not shooting it that often, get it with the stock. You can always, you're either going to have a plastic or a wood stock usually, and if you need to, you can always, get a saw, trim part of that off, reattach the butt pad. There's things you can do to get around it, but if you go online, it's very easy to find the pictures of people punching themselves in the face with the shotgun when they shoot it because they don't understand the recoil, and that can make your dentist very rich. And you don't want that. You want to save your money so you can buy more shotguns. So, one of the big reasons I dislike a pistol grip specifically on Mossberg style shotguns, this here, you can see this little tab just goes in very easily. This is what allows you to work the pump when it's already been worked. So every time you pump the shotgun, it will then lock the forend here. It won't go until you either pull the trigger or you press that in and eject. That way, all these are clear, by the way. That's to prevent accidental discharge or shucking your last round. It's just a basic safety feature. So the pistol grip, the problem is that this kind of gets in the way. So if you have a normal shooting grip on here, you can't really hit it with your thumb too easy, and you also can only reach it with your index finger if you reach through to the trigger guard and touch the trigger. None of that's very ideal, because if you want to do that in a hurry, you might want to be keeping this on target. Just one of those little things. If you need to do it in an emergency, even though the emergencies are going to be very rare and all like that, it's better to have something that you can do kind of mindlessly. And then you'll see with this, You can have, basically a traditional grip and go, oh, I don't want to do that. Boom. It's a lot more natural. It's a lot easier. So the primary benefit of the folding stock here is it does make this quite a bit shorter than its 20-inch cousin. So if space is, a bit more of a concern, it comes in handy. It folds out fairly quickly. The problem with it, though, is it does kind of mess with your ability to actually aim down the sight. So this is not the standard ATI top folder that you will find these days available online. This one's actually metal. It's old. I got it off of eBay. I do have the polymer one as well. But because it's plastic, they have to make everything here a bit thicker, and it rubs on my hand, which is a pretty common complaint. So you're either going to have to deal with that, or wear gloves, or grind it down if you've got a bigger hand. So, also the, metal on it like that, not the nicest cheek well. Shotguns do have a fair bit of recoil. It's not that pleasant. Would not recommend it for, somebody who's completely inexperienced with shotguns. If you know what you're getting into, okay, you do what you want. You're probably an adult. Nice thing though, it's just that one bolt there, goes on and off. The same thing for the regular stocks on there. There's just one big bolt that goes through. Depending on exactly the age of your shotgun, you might need a longer or shorter screwdriver to reach it. Alright, so now we will get into the cons of the Maverick 88. So, even with this fella here, you're limited to 7 rounds of 2 3/4 inch shells. Shotgun ammo is usually called a shell. So this is a snap cap. It's got a spring in there. It's, meant for training and whatnot, and for protecting your firing pin. But just to demonstrate, you can hold the 5 rounds in this one, plus 1 in the chamber, or 7 rounds in this one, plus 1 in the chamber. And for any kind of a home defense need, that's probably plenty. Your average home defense scenario with a 12 gauge shotgun is to be used is 1 round, because nobody wants to get shot twice. For handguns and rifles, it varies by caliber and all like that. For 12 gauge, you're looking at 1 shot, you've solved the problem, because either you have incapacitated who's ever threatening you, or you've scared the crap out of them, because shotguns are loud. So then the other problem with the limited capacity, if you do wind up getting into a proper shootout, is actually loading them. Now what is nice about a shotgun is you can reload them partway through. If you do get into a shootout, say this guy, and you shoot off 5 rounds, you have 2 left. But you also haven't taken care of the problem if you have additional ammo. As soon as you hit a lull, bam, and you got another round in there. And you can just top it up as you go. You don't have to deal with a cylinder like in a revolver, or magazines like in most rifles or certain types of shotguns, things like that. You can just load as you go. Which, it's nice. You probably won't need to do it. Then you do have the recoil. 12 gauge does have a lot of recoil to it. There's no 2 ways around it. Even if you're using the mini shells, they're going to thump pretty hard. However, once you actually know what you're doing, like the first couple times you shoot it, yeah, it's going to knock you around a little bit. But if you actually take the time to learn how to brace yourself and put the stock correctly on your shoulder. This part here usually has a nice big rubber butt pad like this one. That's another thing with the top folders. They don't do anything for the recoil. This has like this tiny thin little pad that is really more for grip, so it doesn't slip off your shoulder. It does nothing for mitigating the recoil. The plastic ones, I think, are just plastic with texture. They also do nothing to help. But with the rubber, it's at least a little nicer on your shoulder. And if you learn, don't put it directly on the edge of your shoulder. You put it in the pocket between your shoulder and your neck. It's a much better place to hold it. There's YouTube tutorials on it. You watch some of those, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the recoil can be a little intimidating, especially for new shooters or people of smaller stature or reduced strength. For that, you can use the mini shells or get a 20 gauge. I would not go down to a 410 if you're worried about home defense, just because they're a little wimpy for that kind of thing. Like, it'll kill somebody, no problem, but it's how long it's going to take to do it. Then also with any pump action shotgun, including the 88, you have the problem of potentially short stroking it. And when you work a shotgun, you got to bring the slide all the way back and then all the way forward to eject the old cartridge and put in the new one. So, get our snap cap out. Now the problem with that is if you are doing things in a hurry, under panic, or just inexperience, or like this one doesn't have the smoothest action yet. I just got this recently. I haven't even got to shoot it yet. It was on sale, so technically used, but clearly never actually fired. Anyway, it's possible to bring the slide partway back and enough where it will start to load up the next cartridge, but won't have extracted the old one yet. And so you bring it back, say, to there instead of there, and you bring it back forward, and now you've jammed it, so it's going to be like that. Nice little stovepipe or a double feed, something like that. And that can be tricky to clear on your own, especially if somebody's shooting back at you, or a bear is trying to break into your house, or you're hunting or something like that. Again, that's just an issue for practice. So practice, 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 especially if you are going to rely on something for protecting you. Then you do have the normal problem with basically any shotgun. 12 gauges have a very thin barrel to them. They don't go through a lot of the pressure and the scraping because they're smooth bore. They don't have the rifling, things like that, so they don't need a big, heavy, thick barrel on them. And to save on weight and expense, manufacturers make them with a thin barrel. It is possible, however, to get a good whack on the barrel and leave a dent in it. If you're going to just be shooting buckshot or birdshot, you might feel it's okay to risk it. I'm not going to make that judgment call for you, for obvious reasons. However, if you're going to be shooting a slug out of it, you definitely want to get that taken care of. So you could either swap out the barrel for a replacement, or you can bring it to a gunsmith and they can pop it out just like any car mechanic can a dent. And then you've also got the sights. So you'll notice on this, there's no rear sight. All you've got is this tiny little bead up here. And you might think, wow, that's awful. How can I hit anything with that? And it's actually not that bad. And on Mossberg, you do have these striations across the top here. So they help reduce the glare, and they also help you center it. So when you go shooting, it's actually pretty easy to get just the bead right on your target, and then shoot. And most of the time you're going to be shooting either buckshot or birdshot, something like that, where there's spread. So you're not looking for like sniper grade accuracy of picking, between which hair follicles you're shooting somebody. You're shooting something that is going to either spread out and just hit in the general area of where you're aiming, or you're firing a big old slug, which is going to put a hole the size of your thumb for an entry wound. So again, you're also going to be shooting at shorter range. You're not going to be shooting something 300 yards away. So for that, the sights are adequate. For newer shooters, they could be confusing, but they are also something that's pretty easy to just kind of snap up and take a quick shot with. Again, with practice. All right, and now some of the pros. Maverick 88s are still pretty darn solid. They do have the aluminum receiver, so they don't weigh a whole lot. So whether you're going to be protecting your house, going hunting, whatever, it's easier to tote it around and maneuver it. They are all American made. Some of the parts are made out of the country. I do believe in Mexico still, but everything here is actually assembled and inspected in the US, in Texas, since they launched these in 1988, hence the name Maverick 88. And I've never had any problems with mine. I've had this one for a few years, put a bunch of ammo through it, it's fine. This one I just got. It was a little stiff and sticky, but it needed some lube, and it's never been fired. So I've lubed it a bit. You can probably see some of the lovely grease on there. And I gotta get out there one of these weekends and actually put ammo through it. So one of the bigger selling points about these, they're pretty inexpensive, honestly, for an absolute rock solid, last you the rest of your life shotgun. $250 or under sometimes. Yeah, absolutely worth it. And you have a lot of different options for what you can get. You can get this one, it's called the security model, 7 rounds, the 20-inch barrel. You can get the Persuader, which is how this one came, where it has the normal full-length stock on there. I swapped this one in for this presentation. But yeah, that's just their normal thing. It's probably the most common with the 18.5-inch barrel, the 5-shot tube. I added this little rail attachment here. I think I got that off of eBay or Amazon, something like that, for under $10. And all that does is it allows you to put attachments on there. But the other nice thing about these, they have other versions. So they also have the Field and Stream, or Home and Field version, that's what it was. Home and Field, I think, is what they're still calling it, where it comes with the 18.5-inch barrel like this, and a longer hunting barrel. This is one of the older barrels. The new ones have the top rib on there to help strengthen them a bit, give you a bit better of a sight on there. But bam, that's how quickly it goes on. It's a one nut. Everything locks in here when it's actually forward and you've got a loaded chamber, and bam. So you can, I think they go for like 260, 270 average, something like that. You can get that particular version, and you can have, your hunting barrel, your home defense barrel, or your range fun barrel, your skeet shooting barrel, whatever. So they also have rifled barrels, which then also have a little chunk that sticks up here with a rail that is permanently attached to the barrel. So once you get, if you do something like put a additional rear sight on there, it will retain 0 to that barrel. You don't have to worry about re-zeroing it every time you switch it in and out. So you can put a red dot sight on there, you can put proper sights, you can get attachments to replace the front sight. So for a 12 gauge, you have almost infinite choices when it comes to the ammo and therefore the power you're going to have. You can get crazy exotic stuff if it's legal in your area, like Dragon's Breath, which will basically turn these things into a really short-range flare gun type thing. I live in Arizona, where we're under constant fire hazard, so I don't have any of that, and I probably never will. Just like I have no tannerite, and I'm not going to fuck with tannerite. But you can get low recoil buckshot, you can get high brass buckshot, you can get flight control buckshot, you can get slugs, you can get birdshot, turkey loads, target loads, whatever you can think of. So then is kind of a counterpoint to the whole short stroking issue, or short shucking as some people call it. You have the reliability. It's a pump action shotgun. This tube has a spring that pushes the ammo that way. When you bring the forearm here back, it lowers the little elevator right there and allows it to pop out. The ammo then gets elevated, hence the elevator, pushed forward into the tube as the bolt comes forward, and then when you pull the trigger, it releases the internal hammer, it hits the firing pin, it sets off the round, and then when you bring the forearm here back, it ejects the spent shell and automatically loads up another one for you. So it's a drop-dead simple system. We've been using pump-action shotguns since the late 1800s. They are super reliable, and just, they're wonderful. You don't have to worry about a lower powered round not cycling a semi-automatic. You don't have to worry about things really getting jammed all that often unless you're doing something stupid. So, pump actions, they're super reliable. They also have, for the Maverick 88, they have a lot of compatibility with the other Mossberg shotguns, the 500 series and the 590s. So the stocks and the forends for those are compatible. A Mossberg 500 barrel with the 5-shot tube, those barrels are interchangeable. That's where I got this long barrel here. This came with my Mossberg 500, not a Maverick. And as you saw, it just goes right on in. It works perfectly. What other options do you have for a shotgun if you don't want an 88 but you want something different? Well, at the price point they're at, there's really nothing comparable. You can get something for cheaper, but it's not as versatile. So like this Rock Island single shot shotgun, you can get these sometimes for $100. Retail, I think they usually go $120, $130, something like that. But it just holds one round at a time. This one is pretty darn loose, so as soon as you do that, it flops forward. This is it's been good for me so far. It hasn't misfired because it's even simpler than a pump action, but you can definitely feel the cheapness to it. This isn't wood, this is all plastic. The trigger group here, I think, is also plastic, and you know, it's not the best thing in the world, but on the other hand, for $100 for a shotgun that, you know, if I'm heading out somewhere and I just want to really quick throw something in a backpack or stow in my truck And if it gets lost, stolen, broken, confiscated, whatever, it's not that big an issue. This series also does have, there we go, the chokes, as they're called. These change the diameter of the muzzle. The Mossberg shotguns that I have do not have that. These are all what are called cylinder bore. So they just are a straight width throughout. So you could get something like that for $100. Or for $400 to $500, you can go up a notch and get something like the Mossberg 500 here. So this one came with the long barrel here. It is the home and field version or whatever. This one's old. This is about 40 years old, 41 years old, something like that now. It was made in either the very end of 83 or beginning of 84. So the wood is a little different than what they're doing now. I don't know if they're still doing this style of heat shield or a heat shield. But if you look, they're very similar. Biggest difference is with the trigger group. The 88 has a crossbolt safety here in front of the trigger. These 500s have a tang safety on the back. Depending on who you talk to, that could be wonderful or terrible. Really, it just depends on what you're used to and what you like on your shotgun. So then you also can go up another notch and go to a 590A1. Now when someone says military grade, gun, technically this is. And the only real difference between this and this is these have a metal trigger group and a thicker barrel. And also you can attach a bayonet to this model, but there are some of the 590 series that are, don't have the thick barrel, that you can also do that with. And there's people who make modifications and attachments where you can stick a bayonet on other shotguns. The bayonet is not strictly necessary for most people. I like it because this is my home defense shotgun. And it has the only accessories you really need, where bayonet, totally optional. It's got a light on there. So anything for home defense should have a light. It's got a sling, so in the event that I do wind up using it, I can then just put it over my shoulder and make sure it's not going to tip over and accidentally go off. And then it's got the on-gun ammo storage. Now, as I alluded to before, these stocks also fit on this. They're all identical. They work. This sling would work on it. You can also get like the elastic little shell holders here. Sorry, I couldn't think of that word. I'm getting over the flu. But yeah, you just take that, in there, and then you hold around the ammo with you. The only downside to these is the elastic does stretch out. So, I'm not the biggest fan of the speedy stock on here, but that's for another video on another day. And then you also have something like a Remington 870 shotgun. So this is a police magnum. I got this used for a little over $400. And then I had to add this tube on, so this will have 7-round capacity, which is what this just came with straight out of the box. And I didn't need to spend an extra like $50, $60 upgrading it. But another thing on here, you can see this one has what are called rifle sights, which are again just straight on the barrel. So if you do swap the barrel out, you can do that. Your cheapest 870s are running right now about $450, $500 usually. And that's usually for like an 870 with just the 4-round tube, synthetic furniture, plain barrels, so you wouldn't have the fancy sights, you'd just have a front bead. You can sometimes get them used at a good deal. That 870 and my Wingmaster I got from Atlantic Firearms recently because they had a whole bunch of police trade-ins. They worked perfectly, and they were a really good deal. That's one of the things I like about used shotguns. They're very hard to kill. So for upgrades, because for anything like this, you know, some people just can't leave stuff well enough alone. So I did already go over this rail briefly. You can get longer or short. All right, so let's talk about upgrades and accessories. So, I did mention the rail on here before, and it just goes on very easily. They usually just get whatever type of attachment you get like that. It usually comes with an Allen key. So even if you don't have your own, you can attach it. If not, run out to your hardware store. You can buy an Allen key set for a few bucks. But something like this, it allows you to attach different things on there, depending on your exact model gun. The security here, for example, does not come with sling swivels on it. It's got a little hole where you can drill it yourself. It's got the front here where you can attach the little stud, like on that one there with a hole through it. For anything that you're going to use for home defense, again, sling and light. And you should probably have additional ammo on there. Then you can also do stuff like get additional barrels. You can get different stocks, different grips. You can get improved sights, like on this guy. So for these, this came drilled and tapped. So whatever kind of, you know, sight attachment I want to put on there, very easy. These, nope. But you can either go to a gunsmith and get that done for you, or if you're talented, you can do it yourself. Though for any kind of modification to a receiver like that, go to a gunsmith, because if you fuck it up, too bad. Then with the sling swivels, it's this little dealie here. So these are pretty universal. Uncle Mike's, and there are some other brands out there. They work. They work pretty darn well. Some slings come with them, some don't. You can also get the slings that hold ammo like this one here, but these, I don't know, it's not necessarily the best way to hold your ammo because they do flop around and it can get twisted around and in a high tense situation, and it can be tricky to get something out when you have like quarter seconds to deal with the problem. You can also get the little sticky sides and then just attach that there. They have them in 5, 6, 7 different shot capacities. You can get hard plastic ones or the little nylon stretchy ones like that. The hard plastic ones, if you leave them loaded forever, they will eventually stretch. With these elastic ones, with the nylon, they can also start to pull apart. Like this one was never attached to anything. I tried to pull it off of the backing here, and it just started to fall apart. So make sure you read the reviews and that you're getting something that's going to work. And then one of the most important upgrades, say you want to shoot the little mini shells. And for comparison, this is a standard 2 3/4. This is a mini shell. They are considerably shorter. And these will also all take 3-inch loads. They're not as common, usually for hunting, but if you want to get a slug and use it for home defense with a little extra power, go ahead. But for these little guys, they will not reliably run in most shotguns the way they are. If you have something that is a break action like this, they'll work perfectly. If you have some of the bull pump action shotguns, because those are a newer design, they will work in those, like the Kel-Tec or the MP12 from Smith & Wesson. I haven't tested that because I've never actually held any of those yet. But as far as I know, they do work. But again, if you're going to trust it with your life, test it out first. But for these little guys, there's a nice little adapter you have for Mossberg shotguns because they're open at the bottom here. Actually, I should get this one because we're supposed to be talking about the 88 anyway. It's nice and open at the bottom here, whereas something like a Remington and a lot of the others out there, it'll have this little part of the elevator here. Their internals are considerably different, but with Mossberg's, it's this nice big open hole, which means you can get this thing. It's the, make sure I'm doing that correctly, the Opsal. These are made in Texas. I think they're currently going for $14, something like that. And oh look, I just installed it. It's that easy. And what that does is it shortens up this opening, so if you do load these, they will then more reliably feed in. So using mini shells, that turns a 5-shot into a 9-shot, the 7-shot into a 12-shot, or this 8-shot into a 13-shot. So you don't quite double your capacity, but you do add to it considerably. And depending on exactly what you want to do, it can be a big help. If you're worried about, say, a pack of coyotes or something like that, they're not the biggest, toughest things out there, but they're small, they're fast. If they do attack you, it's probably going to be either the rabbit or in a swarm, which it's incredibly rare, but it can happen. You might want to load up additional rounds in there because you don't necessarily need the full power of a 2 3/4 inch shell to take one of those down. You might want to trade out some power for additional capacity. You might also want to do that for home defense depending on where you live. Like if you're in an apartment or your neighbors are real close to you in their homes, drywall does not do a whole lot to stop ammo. Especially if you're going to be shooting slugs. So you might want the reduced power for that, just so you don't accidentally destroy as much of your neighbor's property. You might want to just have less recoil while you're training. You might want to just have more fun at the range without reloading. It's up to you. So in conclusion, which of these two is better? Would I trust my life to them? Well, first answer is it depends, and the second answer is absolutely. This is a proven design. It's been around almost as long as I have. Yeah, you can break it like any mechanical device if you abuse it or you don't take care of it, but I've had this one for a while. It's perfectly good. Everyone else who I know who's owned one, they're fine. They'll last forever as long as you keep them lubricated, clean them once in a while, and don't smash them into a tree. go back to that first question again. Which of these do you pick? They're almost the same price. Sometimes they'll vary by like $5 to $10. This one has a greater capacity and the longer barrel. This one, shorter capacity, shorter barrel, makes it a little lighter, a little more maneuverable. They take the same accessories. All the internals are identical. So I would put it this way. If your only care is like home defense or professional defense or something, like if you're a security guard somewhere and you need to provide your own stuff, which is bullshit, but whatever. Like if you're going to be guarding something, I would go with the 7-shot. The size and weight difference, just they're not that extreme. If I can line these up for you. Sorry. You'll notice like it's an 1.5 inch difference on the barrel. And then the 2-round capacity difference. That's really it. You have the same trigger group, the same bolt group, the same slides. All that is the same. However, if you're going to be doing any sort of hunting or sporting with it, I'd get the 5-shot. Just because you can get the different barrels and put them on there easier. The 20-inch only works with the 7-shot tubes, which really they only have for this. So if you want a rifled barrel, if you want a long barrel for bird hunting or skeet shooting, something like that, you need to go with the 5-shot. I still recommend getting the Field and Stream version or Home and Field, whatever that is called that I can't remember, and I really should have looked up before this, because this is like my 3rd attempt. Anyway, just go with that, because then you get the long barrel, you get the short barrel. If you live in one of the states that frowns upon the Second Amendment, if you have the longer barrel and you're just like, oh yeah, I have it for skeet shooting, yeah, okay, no one really cares that much about that. No one's gonna really harass you unless they're crazy. And then in your own home, you just swap out the barrel, which, as you saw, only takes a few seconds, and you can keep it ready for home defense. And again, for home defense, the average number of rounds fired to end that with a 12 gauge is 1. But, I mean, I keep these things loaded up. Not these two in particular, but I have a couple other shotguns I keep on hand. Those are loaded up and ready. The other thing, if you want to have something loaded for a prolonged period that either is in a closet, in your car, in a locker, wherever, you may want to consider downloading it, where you put in, say, like 5 or 6 rounds into this one, or 3 to 4 rounds to this one to save the magazine spring, because magazine springs are just little springs. This one is in particular pretty rusty and will probably never be used again. But yeah, they can wear out like anything else. So you might want to keep that in mind. Also keep everything lubed. Keep it free from rust and moisture and everything like that. And then you'll be handing this thing down to your kids, your grandkids, or whoever you want to give your stuff to. Or like the previous owner of this one, you might just get tired of it in a couple years and say, okay, I'm going to sell this or trade it in. And if it's in better condition, boom, there you go. Yeah, I'd trust either of these with my life. You can put the mini shells in them, you can put normal 12 gauge in them, you can put 3-inch shells in them, but no magnums. Do not put magnum loads in these. You can break the gun that way. So, yeah. Go out, take a look. If you just don't like them, you can upgrade to Remington 870 or a Mossberg 500. Or if you really want to go for it, go for one of the 590A1s. I mean, that's clearly what I've chosen, and that's my bump in the night gun. But yeah, these are good. So yeah, my final recommendation, go out, buy one, you're not going to regret it. You can spend more, you can spend less, but honestly, for like $250, you're getting something that's good. Just very solidly good.